you couldn't pay me to go back to my 20s, to be honest.
Everyone said that your 20s and college were like the best years of your life. And I was like, I'm waiting for that to happen.
What were the most character building moments of your 20s? Like, was there a moment where just like shit hit the fan and you were like, where do I go from here? And how did you navigate it?
Oh yeah, there are so many.
Especially when I'm with 20s, I'm like, parts work.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't say parts yet. You want to hear about parts?
What do you want to do with your life?
I'm turning 26 and being single at this age is terrifying.
Like, every day you should ask me how I'm feeling 500 times a day. And it's like, that's literally not how their brains are wired.
Thank you.
This was so much fun.
This was so fun. Hey, it's Madison.
Ava, and I'm Elle.
And this is the 20-something Playbook. And today we are joined by Krista Williams and Lindsey Simcik of Almost 30.
Yay.
We are so excited to have them on. Their podcast has over 100 million downloads, which is just insane. And what they've accomplished is incredibly inspiring to us. Their book, Almost 30, A Definitive Guide to the Life You Love for the Next Decade and Beyond, is out now. We're going to be talking to them about their book. Thank you so much for being here, you guys.
So
Thanks for
excited.
having us. We've already had a chuckle or two with you.
I know, honestly.
That was nice.
Feels weird to start. I'm like,
I feel like we should have started when we walked.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, hi.
Yeah. If you could describe your 20s in 3 words, what would you describe them
Oh,
as?
that's a good one.
Oh man. Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
A mask. And drunk. Honestly. I was drinking a lot.
Good one. Frustrating, confusing, and like a letdown. I think everyone said where I grew up. So I grew up in Ohio, and where I grew up, everyone said that your 20s and college were like the best years of your life. You're like, these are the best years of your whole life. And I was like, I'm waiting for that to happen. Because it wasn't the best years of my life. My life has gotten so much better as I've gotten older and as I've gotten healthier and just more well, and as I become more the person that I am. And I felt like the 20s was such a hard time, for a lot of the reasons we talk about in Almost 30 or the book, but it's just a really defining decade of time. You're finding your partner that you're going to be with for the rest of your life sometimes. Most people by 26 or 27 are having their first child. The average age of marriage is 28. A lot of people have a lot of student debt that they're really struggling with. 60% of Americans have student debt. You are figuring out where you want to live, what your career is, your friendships are changing, your body is changing, you're on your own. I just think it was something that we felt like wasn't being talked about enough. And we wanted to really start a conversation around this really challenging time that was really defining for the rest of your lives. And I just honor you guys for being in this process. And I think with the last thing I'll say is with the information, hopefully that you guys can gather where you are, you can make it really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason we started this. Maddie, on her 25th birthday, had a meltdown.
I had a breakdown on my 25th birthday, but it's exactly what you were saying, Krista. It was just this shitstorm of expectations not being met. I was 25, single. My parents were married with a house at 25, so I was like, what's wrong with me? What? Am I doing okay? I have no idea. So, this is the origin of 20-something Playbook, and what I love about what you guys are doing is just normalizing the 20s. Even hearing you say, it gets better. That's just so real.
So much better.
I can't even tell you.
I was just saying, you couldn't pay me to go back to my 20s, to be honest. It was such a formative time, and I'm so thankful for all that I went through. But it gets so much better. And I think really, if I think about it, why it got better, it's not necessarily what was happening around me, but once I got right with myself within, then everything else.
I was listening to your podcast the other day, and you said that you just said it now too, where you felt like you were wearing a mask in your 20s. How did you get through that? How did you overcome the mask? How did you find your true self?
And transform into a very authentic version.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I mean when I say a mask, I felt like most of my life leading up to now was kind of a performance. I wasn't truly living my life. I was kind of waiting for the things to happen that I was told, like Krista said, were going to happen for me. And I was trying to be someone that I wasn't to get there. And I was confused as to why things weren't happening. But the mask was so much of what I was told I should be in order to get to where I want to go, whether it's like the nice girl, the polite girl, or, you know, you should do this in order to be that famous actress, or, you know, you should be this way in order to get the guy. Like I just had so many different narratives about what I should be. And so that pulled me so far from who I really was. So in my late 20s into my 30s, I really started this slow, treacherous walk back to myself, you know? And so once, I think for me, one of the first steps in removing the mask was finding my voice and my truth. And Krista talks about this a lot, but you know, I struggled with a lot of like vocal health issues, and it was so connected to me being able to speak my truth. So where did that start? That started with really honest conversations with my family about, you know, what my true dreams were. It was about, you know, my desire to move away from home. That also looked like being honest with, you know, guys I was dating about like what I really desired or what I wanted to experience in a relationship. Because to be honest, I was putting up with really poor behavior all the time. And if I was honest with myself, I didn't want my relationships to feel like that. I didn't, you know, want to be treated like that. So in these little ways, I started to hear my own voice and my own truth. And that kind of helped me to recenter and be like, okay, what do I really want? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be around? Like, where do I want to live? What lights me up? And so it's not this overnight thing. It's not this like huge spiritual awakening. Like I am enlightened. It's like these little moments where you choose to listen to the voice that's much softer and quieter than every other voice, but you get quiet enough to listen.
What did that conversation with your family look like when you wanted to go a different route? Was it difficult? Did they support you? Like for 20-somethings who maybe want to do something different than their parents maybe always imagined them doing?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about like that idea of the expired dream, because I think a lot of us grow up with a dream. We're like, we want to be a lawyer, we want to be a doctor, we want to be an actress, or whatever it is, kind of the track we're put on. And then at some point, you know, you kind of realize that though you might be leveraging your gifts, they want to be expressed in a different way. And so with my parents, they've always been supportive. I'm really blessed in that way. Always been supportive of whatever I want to do. But I think, you know, they had this vision of like, okay, like she's going to become an actress. It's going to be a hard road, but she's going to get there. And then when I kind of veered off and I was a SoulCycle instructor and a fit model, and then we started the podcast and all these other things started happening, still leveraging my gifts, they were a little like disoriented. Like, is this okay? Like, this is a big leap to move to LA and take a chance on this. And I think what I found is that my family and people that love me always catch up. You know, I think it's about taking the action first as confidently as you can and trusting that your love between you and your family and friends and what have you will eventually, it'll catch up to the moment and they will eventually get it. But by the way, that's not the point. You know, not everyone's going to get what you're doing. So I just trusted my family. You know, I shared with them my plans. It wasn't a question. It was just like, these are my plans. This is what I'm going to do. And, you know, they were like, okay, you know, if that's what you feel, then you go and do it. I know they weren't totally bought in, but eventually they were.
And what did that look like for you, Krista? Because you talk about growing up in Ohio. It's the same thing. It was like going to college. That was the best years of your life. Like, how did you rework that? Was your family supportive as well?
Yeah, so my situation was a little different because my family didn't really have any dreams or visions for me. Like, they were just like, don't go to jail. Like, they had like, they loved me, but they really were kind of just in their own experience and their own world. So they didn't have much attachment to me becoming anything or being anything. They were interested in me going to a great college. They were interested in me making good money. But it was nothing really beyond that. So I had kind of freedom in that way, felt a little lost because of it, but also a lot of freedom. And so it never felt like I was disappointing them or letting them down, you know, by doing what I was doing. I definitely think they were confused. They were like, what is this? Why do you keep talking bad about us? Like, what's going on? And so in their confusion, but I had a relationship with my family where we struggled a lot. You know, there's a lot of mental health in my family. Like, I love them deeply and we're very connected, but it wasn't that peaceful in my household. It wasn't really nice a lot of times. So I didn't have a sense where I was like, I want to make them happy or I want to make them proud.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not a part of me that wants to make my mom happy or proud. Like, there for sure is. But my dominant parts were rebellious. I was like, oh, I don't even care what you guys think of me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to do this thing. And so there was, my drivers were a little bit different, and I didn't ever have that. So there's a positive to that gives you a lot of freedom. And then there's kind of like a sadness there where you're like, well, does anyone care about me?
Yeah.
You know, type thing. So both are true.
Yeah, and you talked about parts work. Can you break down parts work a bit? I do parts work as well. And it's been so transformative in my 20s. So can you share a bit about how that's helped your mental health?
I know this whole conversation, especially when I'm with 20s, I'm like, oh my God, all I want to do, I'm like, parts work.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't talk about parts work yet. Come on. I'm like, don't say parts yet.
You have to go ahead.
And then now you said it, I'm like,
you have the green light. Yeah.
you want to hear about parts? Okay, so parts it's a psychotherapy technique called internal family systems, and the founder is called Dick Schwartz, and he worked a lot with women that had eating disorders. And the way that it came about was that he was working with women with eating disorders, and they would have binging, for an example. And he noticed that the women would be having two co-current experiences where they had the part of them that would be binging and overeating and eating till they were sick or eating till they were nauseous. And then they had this other part that would also come online that would say, like, tomorrow we don't eat, we restrict, we're going to eat perfectly, we're going to do all these things. And he's like, how could these two exist? And I think a lot of us can think about experiences and parts of ourselves where we have two concurrent experiences. I love this person, but I also feel like we need to break up. And we can have this, these multiple experiences. So he was kind of like, I'm going to get curious about this. I'm going to break these experiences and feelings into parts. And he got to know them very well. And what we can find is that the brain can really understand things and heal much better when we personify things. So personifying the part that's the binger, we can look at this part, the binger, and say, binger, what's going on? Like, how are you feeling? Why are you overwhelmed? Why are you binging? And then when we can really sit with that, we can understand that the binger is trying to soothe. The binger is trying to help us feel better. The binger is really trying to give us a break from a stressful day. Then we can look at the other part in this case where it's telling us that we need to be perfect. We have to eat this many calories. We have to work out this much. We have to do all these things. What is the reason for doing that? Oh, I remember that mom really loved me when I looked perfect. I remember that people gave me a lot of attention when I was thin. And I really like that. I really like getting attention. I like getting thin. Okay, great. Now where can we find the truth? And the truth is our soul is beyond any numbers, any labels, any love outside of ourselves. So the truth here is above these two parts. And we want to get connected to that truth. So where I see parts work being really important for people in your 20s is because most of us in our 20s are still being driven by an unconscious part of us. So the unconscious part of you would be the part of you that's still programmed from your parents. So in the example with you, it's the part of you that still wants to appease mom and dad. For me, that was a part of me that probably wanted to appease, something else, or the part of me that wanted to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And so instead of your soul leading the way in your 20s, you have a part that's a perfectionist. You have a part that's trying to do these things. And that's not the real you. And that's the part that whenever you achieve the goal is never going to be happy. And we all know what that's like when we've had a goal and then we achieve it and we're not happy. So we know that that's a part leading us because it's going to keep us chasing all of the things. So the way that we work with that is really looking at that truthfully and honestly, getting to know that, loving, honoring, and accepting it, but coming back to the truth. Like my soul knows that I'm worthy beyond achieving something. My soul knows that I'm worthy beyond money, beyond labels, beyond anything else.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Seriously. Very well said.
Yeah.
And I can tell you wanted to talk about that.
No, I'm so glad. I'm like
Dick Schwartz.
There we go. That was great. And it's interesting hearing you talk about that because I've noticed that in the 20s with my peers, like I went through this in my early 20s because I was diagnosed with like a life-threatening health condition. So by the time I was 20, I enrolled myself in therapy and I was like, I got to get my shit together because it looks like my life's going to end soon. So I got to figure things out. And luckily, as close as there is to a cure to it came about a couple years ago. So that was like a whole process of parts work for me of like coming to terms with an early death and then being like, oh, okay, I got my life back again.
Now
I
what?
have my whole life ahead of me now. What is going on? And I noticed that it's been, a blessing and a curse because I had to face really dark things at a young age, but parts work really helped me face them and find my authenticity and true self amongst like really dark, disturbing stuff.
Yeah.
And I've noticed now with my peers, a lot of them, exactly what you said, Krista. They're following a part of themselves. They're not on an authentic path. So just talking about this now, it feels like parts work is actually one of the keys to an authentic path for someone in their 20s.
Yeah.
Because then it's not taking over. The parts are taking over their path in life.
That's my path and that's my journey. And parts is my truth. And there's a lot of different, ways people can find self, finding the true, the soul. The self is the soul, whether it is parts or other. But I think it's really knowing ourselves well enough to know when we're in a story, when we're in a program, when we're in conditioning, and when we're in like the freedom and liberation. You can use your body as a tool to tell like, okay, when I'm thinking about this situation, how does my body feel? Contracted, stressed, anxious? How do I feel free, liberated, light? Like it's really powerful to go into therapy and do the work of unblending in parts. I've done a lot of different modalities, and it's just been the thing that works for me.
Yeah.
And I find our audience, every kid we talk to, young adult these days, everyone wants to know, how do you figure out what you want to do with your life? What did that look like for you two? Did you always know? Did you have a feeling, or did it evolve over time?
Yeah, like even I want to know. So speaking is something that really came naturally to Maddie, and she's always wanted to do it. Did not come naturally to us, but now we're kind of in a space where we're doing that more, and it's looking like this might be the path for us. Thank you. It took a lot of really scary work, but was that something that always came naturally to you too? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, when I think about like, what do you want to do with your life? I feel like that's a question we get way too early.
Yes.
You're like 3 years old.
Way too early. I remember feeling just a lot of pressure around that question. And even though I had like a very clear vision of like, I want to be a performer. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like specifically, but like, I want to perform and that's what I want to do. The question, as I just became a bit more like, in my body and conscious, it did feel like a lot. And I was actually confused by the question because I think, and I can imagine a lot of people listening maybe are too, because there's this two things tugging at you. It's like, what's the job that you're going to have that's going to provide a stable life or, get you all the things that like society says is success or like markers of success. And then there's that pull of like, I really want to be doing something that fulfills me, and I want to be doing something potentially that makes like an impact, or it's kind of like less of the tactical or tangible and more of just like that feeling.
Yeah.
And, I think it's very specific to the person. Some people are in their actual career, like living their purpose.
Yeah.
And some people have a career and then they are living their life outside of their career as their purpose. And then I'll pull up one other layer. And what I realize now as a 37-year-old, that like the way that I show up for my life and are living my life on a daily basis is like my purpose and where I want to be like focused. In terms of like that, what am I doing with my life? Rather than like, okay, what's the thing that I'm showing the world that I'm doing and how I'm making money? That has always flowed. It's not been easy, but it's just, it's been on its own zigzag journey. And I trust that will be for the rest of my life. So I think for me, it's like, how do I want to feel like in my life? And in terms of like my relationships, make me feel fulfilled. My relationship with my body, how I'm like rearing my child, how I have, or my relationship with the community that I'm in or with nature. Like it's so many other things outside of like the career path. But I do feel fulfilled in our career path. So I was at this moment in my life, I wasn't always, and I might not always be, right? Like it's just, it's such a nuanced thing. So the answer felt a little all over because it is all over. I think we're stepping into a time and an era where like that linear track of your career isn't going to hold like as much like intensity and pressure and all of your purpose, and it's going to change and it's going to be separated from your purpose.
We were very lucky. We saw our mom go through a huge career change at 40. Cool. Like it was like she was in corporate and then she went to health and wellness and now she's doing something she loves. So for us, I always knew that whatever I embark on when I'm young, I can always change that.
Yes.
Wow.
So
And
important.
I think that's something important for people to hear on this. If you're in your 20s, if you're younger or older, you can always change it. That's up to you. You're in control of that.
Yeah.
You worked in corporate?
I did. Yeah.
You did. Yeah.
Yeah,
What was
so
that like for
one
you?
of the, just thinking about what you were saying, one of the concepts I really love, and the name is escaping me of who discovered it, so whoever can tell me in the comments, but it's called a career portfolio. And I think people oftentimes think about a career path, and they think about like a linear career path. Like I'm a director, and then I'm a VP, and then I'm president, and then I'm making $1 million and I'm happy. And it's like, actually careers don't work that way. And it's like, if we can think about the way that we work as a portfolio, where it's like, I did this one job in photography, and I really loved that. And what I loved about that was like, I loved working with people, creating a vision and storytelling. Okay, cool. My next job, I want to do something that has creative storytelling, working with people, all these things, but it's not going to be photography. What can I add to my portfolio of this like more robust, and it just gives a little bit more freedom and flexibility of who you are and what you do, instead of thinking like you need to work up the corporate ladder, because for a lot of people that doesn't make you happy. I think for me, I was in the corporate world. I was in, I lived in Chicago and New York, and I was working in just various corporate jobs. I was very successful at the beginning because I thought that was my path. And then in the end, when I was like discovered that I didn't want to be in the corporate world, did fine, but I was not the most, I was a personality hire, to be honest. Like, I don't think I was doing my thing. Like I was like in meetings, just like, I gained a skill of tracking. How could I understand the least and just kind of float by? I was like, oh, I got to lean on this thing.
That would have been me, honestly.
Oh, I was like, I'm going to ask her this one question and just see this, and then I'm out. Like, it was just crazy. But I felt like, for me, I never really wanted to find purpose at my work. I just wanted money. I was really about money and status. I was like, oh, I want to be at the top, and I want to be making so much money and all these things. I didn't really even know why. Like, and that's what I think in your 20s is being mindful of what's unconscious. Okay, why are you at that job in finance? Let's be truthful. Let's be honest. Like, and then when you're speaking, is that your dad's voice? Is that society's voice? Whose voice is that? Because you can be like, well, it's got great benefits, and it's like, are you caring about benefits truthfully right now? If you are, that's great. If you but most of us are not. So being mindful of whose voice is really speaking when you're thinking about your career, and really just allowing it to unfold naturally. I think the biggest thing that I'll say, just as a takeaway for people, what I wish I would have done earlier was, I wish I would have understood my gifts. And I think astrology, human design, whatever tools you use, Enneagram, doing research on just various personality type studies can be helpful of figuring out what your gifts are. You could even ask your friends. You guys could ask each other, like, what are 3 things I'm really good at? Where do you see me really shining? And by doing something like this, you can understand what you have to offer so much more deeply than just kind of going around willy-nilly fitting yourself into every box. Like, oh, you need someone who's organized. I can be organized. Maybe you're not truly organized. Like for me, I'm not. I'm organized in a specific way. So I think understanding your gifts is going to be the biggest thing that's going to help you at any path in your career, because then you can really figure out where you're fit and what you want to do based on that.
I love that. And I love the portfolio analogy, because it makes it less this to this to this. Like it's less of a linear, like you said, linear path. It gives us more freedom. I think even like, I've actually never heard that before, so I really appreciate you saying that. And I feel like we can relate to that even in our early 20s. It has not been linear. I do graphic design, I do social media, I do a podcast,
Serving job.
Serving job.
I was serving.
Screenwriting.
We were serving
forever.
for a long time.
The best.
Yeah, you said you were a bartender.
Yes. I was bartender,
Oh, what's your
bottle
thoughts
girl.
on that? You're like, dude, is that
Is it legal to talk about it on here?
Honestly, met great people.
Oh, you were a bartender too.
I was not a bartender, but I had to sometimes go in the bar.
No.
I was not great with the alcohols.
Well, no, you were
Not
better
great.
than me. I could not bartend to save my life. Like, I literally was like, you do the
You
drinks.
couldn't do much. I
I
had to make
a coffee
her.
machine.
Did you guys have a restaurant?
Just so you know, we all worked. This is actually in.
It's like them 3 as little girls
No,
at the
I'm
plastic
not,
center.
I'm not even kidding. We do, I think, everything together. There's only like one thing I've done on my own. Serving, we did together. We worked every shift together, the 3 of us.
Wow.
And it was actually
so
funny because
fun.
we all look so similar that we would be like serving a customer, and then one of them would be like, hey, like you forgot this drink. And I'd be like, that was my twin sister. Like, it's not me,
that's
actually.
amazing.
But yeah, honestly, serving, I think, is one of the most humbling jobs you could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly would not take it back. I think that everyone should do Listen, if you get a good job before that, I'm not saying you should go and be a server, but it's something that is very character building is a great word.
Definitely.
And speaking of character building, what were the most character building moments of your 20s? Like, was there a moment where just like shit hit the fan and you were like, where do I go from here? And how did you navigate it?
Oh yeah, there are so many.
Like, where do I begin?
I think in the relationship realm, I had just a total, blow up in my long-term relationship. My college sweetheart who I thought I would marry, like I would tell everyone, like, this is my person, I'm going to marry him, no doubt. And I was working in the bars at the time. I was running myself ragged. I was honestly just trying to survive. Like I could not, New York is very expensive. Like I could not hold on to money. It was all going to bills and, rent and, my whatever partying habits on the weekend. And we were drifting. We were drifting away from each other. I was losing the plot on, just like what integrity feels like in relationship. Granted, my soul was kind of pulling me there because I know that he wasn't my person, but I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the communication tools to be like, hey, listen, I'm feeling this way. So I ended up cheating on him and he ended up finding out. And it was just, my whole world fell apart. Even though I was the one that caused that, it just sent me into like a really, really dark place because everything dissolved that I thought would happen in my life. And just dealing with the guilt of that and just kind of what part of me would cheat on someone that I love? Like what part is that? It just felt so just gross at the time,
Well, it was
really.
probably a reflection of where you were at in your life. It had no reflection of who you are as a person.
Yes.
And how did you get through the guilt of that?
I had to come to terms with the fact that even though I loved him deeply, there were a lot of things that were not working between us and just parts of who he was that were not compatible with who I was. But I'm someone who like kind of critiques myself before anyone else and is like really hard on myself. So that's where a lot of my energy went in trying to make sense of everything. I was like, man, you fucked up. But really my soul was like, you actually haven't like made a move on this for a while and you haven't communicated with him. And so we're going to like take you on a ride right now. And so it just took time in terms of like the grief and just forgiving myself, a lot of therapy. And on the other side of that was 7 years of being single. So I learned a lot in terms of who I really was and what I really desired within relationship. I reconnected with, the little girl inside of me that just was, kind of she was wanting to feel validated in ways that like she didn't get when she was younger. And it was kind of coming out in her dating life. So yeah, it was a process. It was certainly a process, but I think that where I thought my life was like done, I was like, it's over. I don't know what my life's going to be, really woke me up to so many more possibilities in my life. I think when we're young, especially in our 20s, we have this vision. We're like, this is what it is. Like our blinders on. We're like, this is what our life's going to be. And then when it blew up, it's like the aperture opened. And I was like, oh, wow. I could move anywhere I want to move. I can pursue other things. I can meet other people. It just felt like my life opened up in a lot of ways. Wow. And so, on the outside, it was a total breakdown. And I'll be cheesy and say it was like my biggest breakthrough of my life and really catapulted me into, I think, a season of coming back to myself, and I needed that because especially in the relationship realm, I wasn't meeting people as me. I was meeting people as who I thought they wanted me to be. And so at the end of that stint of being single for 7 years, I did reconnect with my now husband, and I just felt more me than ever. It wasn't about putting on a mask and like hoping they choose me and like me. It was like, I'm good actually if you don't choose me. Like I'm good with me and I'll be good with me for the rest of my life, and that was a different feeling than in my 20s.
That's a really powerful place to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm in my, I'm 25, I'm turning 26, and being single at this age is terrifying because I feel like, I'm almost getting closer to 30. When am I going to meet someone? Sorry?
What does that mean?
Biological clock.
Yes. No, like I'm scared of, I think I'm just scared of not meeting anybody. So I'm in a place of like almost negativity that I'm moving through of feeling like, I'm at that place of like, well, if I don't meet anyone, I don't meet anyone, and feeling confident. And then I go back to, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Oh my gosh, what if I don't find anybody? What should I do? The anxiety and panic. Like I had like months where I would wake up with like panic and being like, I'm not meeting anyone. And I also work from home. So I have, and I do not like dating apps. I've been on them and they just have not served me well. So it's amazing to hear your journey, Lindsey, because it's inspiring to know that continuing to go my own way and stay on my authentic path will lead me to the right person. Because I am very true to myself and I'm proud of that. But it's also hard because, there is a part of me that wants to be in a relationship and wants to move forward, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my sense of self for a relationship that isn't right.
And what are your thoughts on, I feel like at this age, especially as 3 single girls in our 20s, we hear a lot.
Someone's texting someone.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
We hear a lot of lower your standards. Why are your standards so high?
Similar to what Lindsey describes, how she got to a point where it's like, this is me.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, kind of like not F you, but in a way it's like this
I'm
is who I
good.
am.
That's
Yeah. And I think we've cultivated really great friendships in our lives, and I think that fulfills me, and also even doing things career-wise fulfill me a lot as well. And I think that's important to have focus on, because in a way you can't really control when you're going to meet someone.
Yeah.
I have so much to say. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm trying to like regulate.
Go
I'm trying to regulate. So we'll start with the standards.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of nuance to that.
Yeah.
And the nuance is, I have standards. He needs to be a billionaire. He needs to be 6'4". He needs to be doing these things. He needs to be doing all these things. All of these things are surface level things that are ego based. Not that I'm saying that I don't have my own list, honey, about what my man looks like and what's going on. But there's a difference between connecting with someone from your ego to ego and soul to soul.
Yeah.
So when you meet someone at the soul to soul level, that's a whole different experience than my list matches your list. Does your list match my list? And that's why online dating can be hard.
Yeah.
I have a box that I want you to fit into. Do you fit into my box? Check yes or no. And when we think about standards, there should be standards for how you're treated and how you are in relationship to that person.
Yeah.
How you feel.
How you feel.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, you can have standards for, other things, but I think we want to be a little bit more flexible with that. Like me as an example in my process, so I was in a relationship for 10 years and we were married, and I'm now dating, which is so much fun and I love it. And my standards are more energetic and soul-based of how I feel in relationship, how they treat me, what they can teach me, and like, are we aligned from a values perspective? And so now that experience on the outside looks completely different. Different shapes, different sizes, different money levels, different success levels, different, like completely different.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for the experience of being able to get outside my box, because I had quite the box.
Yeah.
I was like, needs to look just like this. Like I was like, this is my type. Mustache. Yes, literally. It's like slam dunks basketballs. And it feels so good to meet people at a heart level, because I want to be met at that level. So we think about ourselves too. We don't want a man to be looking at us like, how much do you weigh?
Yeah.
What does your mom do for work? Like, you want to be seen at the soul level, like how you make someone feel.
Yeah.
And so your standard should be around that.
Yeah.
And then when I think about, the satisfaction that I think a lot of modern women have, we modern women are just so incredible with what we've been able to do, like cultivating the friendships, relationship satisfaction in our life. And I think there's a part of us that kind of is like, well, what is a man going to do, or what are they going to add?
Yeah.
And that's very normal and that's very true. And I do think in a lot of cases, there are a lot of boys that don't have the capacity at this moment to be with you in a way that's going to be supportive of your life.
Yeah.
And your phase of your age is really challenging, because there isn't a lot of men that are mature enough to really meet you at the place that you're at. Yeah. I'll be honest.
Preaching to the choir here.
I'll be honest. It's real and it's true.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I love men. I love men. I have so many men friends. I've had great relationships with men dating, like I love men, but it is challenging at that time. But what I'll say is that I think for me, I had to really learn that just because I'm fulfilled by my friends and my work doesn't mean that a man can't add to that.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like when you're like, okay, everything's really good. Nothing's going to change this. It's like, how can we make it bigger? How can we expand our capacity and possibility? How could a man add to your life?
Yeah.
How could he bring more to your life? And just the last thing, a man, the texture of the masculine of a man is not going to be the same as a woman. He's not going to talk to you like a woman. He's not going to relate to you like a woman. He's not going to, if you're in a hetero relationship is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So accepting that and honoring that and being appreciative of that instead of being like, you don't cry when I cry. You know, like I used to approach every one of my men and be like, every day you should ask me how I'm feeling 500 times a day. And it's like, that's literally not how their brains are wired. And so not expecting that from them can really help you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Two things I want to say that I loved about that. One was the addition. We always say that a partner should be an addition to your life. It's something that should enhance it, not bring it down or change. Like it's going to change, but it's an addition. I love that you said that. And then also the values piece. I think that, would you say that the most important thing that you're looking for in a relationship is shared values? Because that's one thing that I kind of, like there's the soul connection as well, but I feel like shared values
needs to be involved.
To be involved in a way.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It needs to be there, but a lot of people say they have values but aren't living in alignment to them.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing is, you know, if you were like, if I was to ask even myself, you know, maybe, I don't know, if I was to ask someone, you know, any man on the street, what are your values? Family, growth, and whatever. It's like, how often do you see your family? Twice a year. Okay. What? Growth. Okay. What are you doing for growth? Well, I'm trying to get a promotion. Okay. Like, are we talking spiritual growth, mental growth, emotional growth? Like, there's a range, but I do feel like having clarity on what yours are and even being in conversation, like, what does it look like for you to be in deep relationship? Like, what does that mean? How much are you seeing each other? Like, being curious about that, I think, can be helpful.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, your female friendships that you mentioned that are so strong and something you've cultivated and love. Krista talked about this too, where like you can use those relationships as like a model, right? Like where you practice certain things, whether it's like clear communication, it's not going to have the same texture, right? But there is a way in which I feel like I was able to practice before stepping in to a long-term committed relationship where I had that felt sense and that body sense of like, yeah, it feels really good when I'm, you know, have a story in my head where I can actually speak it out loud to the other person. And so I was able to bring that to my relationship with Sean where I was like, you know, the story I'm telling myself is, and I had practiced that with my friends. So while it's not the same, right? And they will be an addition to that and enhance all of that. But you have opportunities to practice, you know, and it's not just kind of this thing where you get in a relationship, you're like, what do I do? Like you've been in deep, intimate relationship with your girlfriends.
I really like that. And that's actually an approach I've been taking the past couple of years in therapy. And I literally had a moment a couple of years ago where I was like, I'm just going to practice my communication skills with my family and my friends.
Yes.
That's great to hear because I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track.
No, 100%.
Because then it's your you know, that's a standard.
Yes.
Where like you meet someone and you can kind of feel into where they're at. They're not going to be at the same level most likely. However, I think what's really cool about being in a romantic relationship, one of the coolest things is growing together. Maybe not at the same pace and time, but there is a commitment to growing together. And so your communication style, the clarity, the honesty might call that person up, you know, might really inspire them and liberate them to be honest. So it's a great thing to cultivate now.
Okay, I love that. That's really reassuring.
A little joke that Ava and I joke about because we're twins is that this was our practice. Like we've been married for 22 years.
For sure.
And we share a room. We share everything.
I want to do like a documentary on twins because the experience of being a twin is so unique.
Actually funny too because our best friend is a twin as well. I mean, they're a boy and a girl, so it's definitely a little different.
Yes.
But there's similarities that I just think
Wild.
like
Yeah.
But again, we grew up with a lot of twins, strangely enough.
Huh.
And a lot of them didn't like each other. We had
I literally was just thinking, I'm like, I would
Wow.
fucking be like, shut up.
I don't
my
know
time.
what.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have our moments, trust me.
For
But
sure.
I think I don't know why. I don't know
But
why we like each other.
Their interpersonal skills, like their interpersonal skills are off the charts. Like they are above and beyond. Like we took a self-compassion test.
Wow.
And I was like, my therapist,
too high.
You're like, I failed.
No, I literally, mine was
You
like
did.
7 out of 10. Ava and Elle took it. I was like, guys, why don't you take it? Because I'm always like, I love all those like
You were
tests
lower
and
than a
quiz.
7 out of 10.
Okay, maybe a 5.
I
maybe
have
I'm
to
stretching
Yes.
it.
No, I have to literally tell her, I'm like, dude, like, Ava and I are like, you have to love yourself. Like, I'm not, like, we are
Yes.
always like, girl, like, we love you.
It's so crazy. Just a minute before, 2 minutes before you said that, I was thinking about you because I was like, I feel how hard you are on yourself, and it's hard. It's hard because you're incredible. And I was thinking how important you guys are to balance that.
Yes.
You are very insightful.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
I'm the perfectionist.
Yeah.
That's intense. And they're chill. And their self-compassion score was almost 100%.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Wow.
I don't know if it has something to do with this. I don't know.
That's
but
what I mean. Your experience, your life is with the mirror you outside of yourself, so
Yeah.
you can see that person and love her. Maybe.
Yeah, and then also I think I don't know. There's a certain level of confidence of growing up with like I don't know if you've seen. There's like a TikTok where it was like oh, if people don't like me, it's like about sisters. Like, oh, if someone doesn't like me, like I got my sister, like she's my best friend. So I don't know if it's like that kind of thing too, where it's like you almost have like a level of confidence of like, oh, I don't need a best
No
friend,
matter
like I
what.
have one here.
So
Like there's like that.
true.
Like I don't
Yes.
need to go externally to find anything.
Yeah.
So
And you're
Yeah.
never alone. Like I had to go through school alone.
Yes.
And they
wow.
went through it together.
That's
Yes.
true. We were
Yeah.
bullied together. We went like even your health issues we went through together. Like it was the support angle, right? Where we kind of supported each other to support her. So I think maybe that's also why we like each other because we've been through a lot. But I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic also working together, right?
We balance each other.
it's-
yeah, well, she, like
so
you were saying,
key.
Krista, she is very hard on herself. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, one of the biggest things we joke it comes from the child prodigy, but we were talking
Well, I
about
think it's
earlier.
also too like I was bullied a lot in school, and then I had a health condition.
Yeah.
So there were moments in my life where I was like so depressed I was almost suicidal, and living through that with them, I think they were honestly like my saving grace. Like I'm not even saying that to be like
Yeah.
genuinely.
I hear you.
They have gotten me through some of the darkest moments of my life.
And I'm very
So-
grateful that I could have helped. I think
Yeah.
as a supporter, I mean, I'm sure you have experienced this as well, but as a supporter, you don't always know what to say. You don't always know what to do. I feel like you communicated with us. Again, back to communication. You communicated with us.
But
you
it's
told
a
us,
learning curve.
yeah, you communicated though what you
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
And because I love you, I did that. I did what I needed to do to get you
Yeah.
through that time.
But even
And-
talking about like feeling guilt, like
Yeah.
I felt so much guilt on how I communicated because I was so fucking angry because I was dying. So it was like, like there's some sick
We
children,
joke
like some
about this a
sick
lot.
kids. No, this is funny because we can laugh about it now because I'm healthy and I'm okay.
Yeah, she's
But I was like, there's like the image of like a sick person is like this warrior spirit angel
like,
who like never
calm,
complains and they're calm.
kind.
And I was like, I was fucking mad and
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah.
And I was like almost suicidal, mad, angry. And I would sometimes take that out on my family. And the guilt of that and the weight of that for me was a lot to move through because it would make me be even harder on myself. And so that was a huge learning curve those years of learning how to communicate. And they were so patient with me, which I'm so grateful for. But they were the angels in the situation because I was losing my shit. I had like, we talk about like, like female rage. Like I just had rage.
We joke she has male rage.
It's not feminine. It's just
not feminine.
rage
No. Yeah.
because I couldn't come to terms with the fact that I was in my early 20s. My life is supposed to be starting and it feels like it's literally ending. So that situation taught me how to communicate with them. But it was really rough.
But if there's
It was so
anything
easy.
I could say to anyone, whether you're a supporter or you're going through your own mental health issues, communicate. I know it's scary to say exactly what you're feeling,
Yeah.
but I think that's what got you through.
And it also is what enabled you guys to support me properly.
I did want to ask Krista, because you mentioned that you experienced a lot of mental health struggles in your family. Was that
you supporting someone, or was that you going through it yourself? And how did you navigate that with whichever? Yeah. Or was it both?
It was both.
Yeah.
So my experience was both. So I think being younger, me did, as a child, doing what I could to support, not really knowing what I was doing or what I needed to do. And so really using a lot of my energy and my life force to help them for things that I wasn't understanding or I wasn't privy to or I wasn't really aware of. And then that caused me to be, depressed from a young age. Like I remember I was diagnosed with depression when I was young. And then it kind of came and went throughout my life. Struggling with anxiety and depression has been something that I've really worked with and been with. I feel the most well at this point in my life than I ever have, but it doesn't mean it doesn't ever come back. Yeah. I think mine now more comes through as like, I see things more in the parts. So it's kind of more, I'm able to be with it more in its truth and kind of see it clearly rather than having it consume me. Yeah. I think in my 20s, it was like consuming. Yeah. And I didn't really realize how much I was struggling until I kind of hit my rock bottom when I was in my 20s. I was living in Chicago. And I remember I had my best friend staying over and she was sleeping in the living room. And I remember waking up in the morning. I remember just having like a split second before the anxious thoughts started going. And I was like, and I just remember like a second and then they started looping again. And I was like, fuck. And I was like, oh no, they're back. And it was just every morning. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I just walked out and I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like I was like at my lowest. And she was like, I've never seen you like this. And we had been friends since I was like 12. So she's like, I've never seen you like this. It's just so bad. And that was at the point where I needed to quit my job. I needed to leave my relationship. I needed to change the way I was relating to myself. I needed to stop drinking. And, there was so many changes I need to make. Yeah. And so at that point I was like, okay, what can I do? So I'm so grateful. The one thing I'm so grateful for in myself is that I never really quit. I'm never someone that gives in. I think we have to keep living, I guess. But I always kind of seek to feel better and seek to do better. And so that's when I stopped drinking. And that was like the first thing I did in my 20s to really support my mental health was stopping drinking. Yeah. That was instrumental. I don't drink now. I haven't drank for, a while. And I think for anyone that struggles with your mental health, you have to be really mindful about your substances. I was even talking to, one of my clients recently who's been partying. And I'm like, you have to be mindful about how it's impacting your brain chemistry, how it's impacting your mood, how it's impacting your sleep. And I feel like when we can really be truthful about that, we can really see our mental health more clearly. And I think it was impacting me in a way that I wasn't seeing. So it's been a through line of my life and my journey. And I think it's kind of the plight of someone that is a seeker, someone that wants for more, someone that's deeply spiritual, someone that's really sensitive, someone that takes on a lot. And I think what we can do is just figure out ways to be with it in the best way possible.
Love that. And I appreciate you talking about being mindful of substances. We all don't drink either. Yeah. And we recently had a conversation.
Canada in you.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say, just when I said that, I was like, it's funny, the colder it is, the more it's like drinking.
Our whole thing is like, we got stronger beer.
Yes.
There's a big drinking culture in Canada. But I think, thankfully, in this day and age, it's a bit more normal to not drink. It was weird because I feel like it's almost like a movement right now. Like people are kind of stopping. Yeah. But we grew up without it because neither of our parents drank. There was just never alcohol in the house. They never drank. My parents, I think, were aware. They didn't know it was mental health, but I think in some way they were aware that it made them feel not as good as they could be. Yeah. But we're very lucky to have had that.
But a lot of our friends in their 20s have talked about cutting out alcohol and managing their substance use and how much it's transformed their mental health. Yes. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Big time. It's huge. I remember, there was a night I did some drugs and I remember in my 20s and I was like, it was like 7 a.m. and I had the covers over me and I was just like, and I just heard this thought. It was like, I should kill myself. And I was like, where's that come from? And it was like outside of me. It was just this like dark, intrusive thought that I heard. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I was like, that's not me. Not that I've had my own share of darkness and dark thoughts, but it was just like, oh wow, this isn't, I don't want to be up at 7 a.m. just stressed in my bed, anxious. Like, you have to be really honest with yourself about the pros and cons of these. And like, honestly, I'm sober all the time. I go out all the time. I'm out at night. I have the best time. Like, and it's also, I'm able to show up like myself. I'm able, and if you're control freak like myself. I can control the conversation. I can control, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how I was doing it before when I was drunk. Like, it's like, you're just like, see you tomorrow. You know, like, hopefully I end up in my bed. Like, it's just crazy. So in your 20s, quitting drinking is huge.
Yeah.
In the book, we talk about just like the power of nourishment. So we talk about alcohol. We talk about like things like coffee in your everyday that are like
that's another
affecting
thing.
your nervous system, your anxiety. I mean, the amount of people that, or friends of mine even, that are like, I've been so anxious lately and da 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 da. And usually, eventually, I'll get to the simple question of like, how much coffee are you having?
Yeah.
You know,
Literally,
because
that was me a couple weeks ago. I cut out caffeine and I'm not stressed.
Yep. There's so many little things that, we put in the book that are just like the little things that we learned where it's like caffeine is going to make you anxious. Like it's going to make you not sleep. Drinking, like birth control was another thing that really supported us that we wrote a lot about in the book too. Like there's just things that we've learned in this process that if we would have known when we were in our 20s, we would be so much happier and so much more satisfied. And like that was our hope with the book, was to share this resource of everything that's really helped us become the people that we are and support us when you feel this way, where you feel lost, you feel confused, you feel like you don't know where you're going, and you feel like you kind of want, you feel like you just want to feel like you're here for purpose and that you're here to do what you came here to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like you both are living your purpose, and it's beautiful to see and to see how far you've come, because you started this pod, like you're almost 30 in your 20s.
yes.
So it's been so inspiring for us to see that, and I know for our audience can see that too. So for our audience who wants to get your book, where can they find it?
Well, it's out now everywhere books are sold and on every platform online. You can go to almost30.com/book. It's kind of an easy way, and you can grab it there. But yeah, this has been, it's really a culmination of our life's work thus far. And our hope is that when people read this book, they feel just the support, the comfort, and the confidence to take the next step. And honestly, like for us, that's what it's been. It's like one step. We don't lay out the blueprint for your life.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how you can come back to yourself so that you feel really confident taking that next step, whether it's in your relationships, within your career, whatever it is. It's funny, lots of like personal stories. You'll learn a lot.
Sure see how it could be funny.
Lots of wisdom from our past podcast guests. It's a 333-page book that you will have for the rest
It's
of your
so
life
good.
to help you navigate change.
I love that. And as someone who's listened to your podcast, I actually listened to the one you did recently about your book. And I love the angle you're coming from. It's inspiring. I feel like as a 20-something, like part of the reason we were so excited to have you guys on is because it's a positive angle. Like, yes, you're going to go through tough times, but it's going to be okay. Like, I feel like there's a lot of like doomsday stuff out these days, especially with social media. It was just really nice to hear such a positive angle. So we appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. We just believe like you're not behind, you're just becoming.
Yeah.
And it's just all a part of the process. And if I would tell my younger self anything, it would be that like you're not lost. It's all for purpose and like you're on your way.
I love that. I think we can end there.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
This was so much fun.
This was so fun.
Oh my God.
We stayed in the beautiful Westgate, New York Grand Central for the duration of our stay, and it was really fun.
The Westgate treated us to a cozy room and a beautiful boardroom to film in, and the location was just spectacular. If you're headed to New York and want a place that brings both comfort and charm, hit the link in our show notes and treat yourself to a stay at Westgate, New York Grand Central.